Apologies, we ran out of time. Matt Damon, apologies, we ran out of time. Apologies to Matt Damon, we ran out of time. Apologies to Matt Damon, we ran out of time. Matt Damon, I'm sorry we ran out of time. Apologies to Matt Damon, ran out of time. Apologies to Matt Damon. He had a baby today, so it really was the wrong thing to do to bump him, but we had to. Apologies to Matt Damon, ran out of time. Apologize to Matt Damon, ran out of time. I want to apologize to Matt Damon, we ran out of time. We will reschedule him. Unfortunately, we are totally out of time.
Backstory Podcast Legislative Update. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele, Backwoods Southern lawyer. We have Captain Russian with us today. How are you, Mr. Russian?
Oh, hey, happy for once about something Alabama did.
There you go. And we have Shay Garrigan, are you the lobbyist for the Alabama Cannabis Association or executive director?
Alabama Cannabis Industry Association, president, executive director, and lobbyist.
So Rains has a plethora of questions for you, and I'm going to let him run wild. Go for it, Rains.
All right. So mainly, thanks again for being with us today, Shay. I know you're a busy person, and this is a big day for you. There should be a lot of celebrating. Tell us why you're celebrating today.
Well, the medical marijuana bill for the past 3 years has made it out of the Senate. Last year, it did not make it to the House due to the pandemic. So this year, it not only made it to the House, it made it through 2 committees that I spoke at. Along with today, it passed out of the House, and it is on to the Senate and then on to the governor's office. So,
tell us about I know the history of this bill, and that for many years we've been trying to get medical marijuana passed in Alabama, and you finally got it pushed through, and it looks like that the Senate will concur their vote on it, and it will end up on Governor Ivey's desk, and she has indicated that she would sign it if it was passed in both houses. What's the immediate effect of this bill? What happens next?
Well, it's written in the bill that they will start choosing the commissioners as soon as July. And there was a lot of discussion that was talked about that today. But in the bill, it does say that they will start putting commissioners on, start choosing commissioners in July.
Okay, so I'm someone who's suffering from post-traumatic stress, and maybe I have some other stuff. What's the timeline for me being able to obtain legal medicinal THC for treatment by my physician?
About 18 months.
Okay, well, that's not so bad. 18 months from now, and that's after they've formed the commission that's going to be the oversight for this particular.
Yeah, they're going to have to form the commission, along with come up with the rules and regs, and then they'll go into licensing. There's going to be probably a lot of different changes that'll be going on then, like as to how they're going to set that commission up. I mean, even though it says it in the bill, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So just because this is passed out of the House, and even just after the governor signed it, we still have a lot of work to do. So you're looking at 18 months. That's what they've been saying to the farmers that are growing. About 18 months is when they will start issuing licensing. The deadline is September of 2022 that they need to have everything all pulled together. The commission needs to be formed along with the licensing being handed out, and all the legality of how they're going to run the program needs to be set up by then.
Okay. That's fantastic news for anybody that's awaiting it. So the many years of wait is over, and now it's just a matter of a year and a half before that ball will be set in motion. Do you believe that that's an accurate timeline, or do you feel like that's going to get hung up at different levels?
I believe actually now all the interest. I mean, if you watched the same thing I did. There's now all of a sudden people are asking the right questions, and they're wanting to know the various specifics of the bill that have been ignored and overlooked in the past. So I actually believe things would probably start to speed up, that people are, because now it's a very real piece of legislation that's been passed. I mean, it's happening here in Alabama. It's going to happen. And so the 18 months was something that was, that's just a timeline, but I do think that things will speed up quite in record time. I mean, there's actually no telling what could happen now that we've gotten through this huge hurdle where we've gotten it out of the House. So this was probably never a bill that was really meant to get this far, which is.
So Shay, I've got a few nuts and bolt questions for you, if I may.
Okay.
I'm assuming this 18 months, one of the proposals was that the ABC board would administer the licensure for the clinics that would be doing the dispensing of the medical marijuana, or the gel cubes, or whatever it is that's been whittled down to. Has that been set in stone, or is that something that the 18 months is for?
I mean, is that an amendment that you're referring to?
I just know
that a rumor, because there's a lot of rumors that are going around.
Another reason why I'm asking the question: is the bill specific about the number of places that will be able to distribute?
Well, they've been specific about the license, like the vertically integrated license. They started off with 4, now they've said about 5. Those vertically integrated license, out of those 5 each license will be able to have up to 5 dispensaries in different counties. I haven't heard anything about the ABC board being the one that oversees any.
Okay, well that was one of the if-ors. If we don't create a new commission, then we could use the ABC board. But of course, they have 42 active bills right now just related to alcohol. Was everybody aware of that? You get it delivered to your house now. You can join the wine club. The state store can deliver your keg and everything to your beach house when your teenagers are down there for spring break. But responsible adults can't be trusted with a gel capsule of marijuana yet. The other thing, one of the advocates in this thing is very unusual in my book. Representative Ball is from Madison County, and you don't hear a lot about hoople heads working at NASA, right? It's sponsored by a very serious person in the legislature, and I think that a lot of the people have taken it as such. It is a compassion bill, has nothing to do with gateway drugs. Of course, I'm sure you saw the letter to the legislature penned by some of my colleagues who are all district attorneys. I thought it was terribly disingenuous of them to say that
my response to that,
some 52-year-old with a bad back, we're going to give him medical marijuana instead of opioids that are going to ruin his life. And you know the situation. And it's definitely a compassion act. I'm not aware of anybody that's ever overdosed on medical marijuana. I'm sure it's happened before, but it isn't quite the opioid crisis we had 4 or 5 years ago. So anyway, I'm happy to see that there's some traction on it. Is there anyone in particular down here that we need to work on from the Senate side? Maybe some people in Mobile or Baldwin that are staunch opponents to this that we might be able to encourage to sway them to see the light?
Well, I'm thinking you have somebody in mind.
Well, not that they'd take my
we
call.
Could do an honorable mention for a representative, I can tell you that. So,
right.
There was an honor. I would like to do this. Can I do this, please? An honorable mention to Representative Matt Simpson, because I know he spent some time on the amendment that he brought to the floor today, and I'm actually impressed.
Good. Great.
Because he really had a roundabout way of actually really just about killing everything. So, and he did it really kind of smooth. But the other honorable mention was Representative Chris England. He did a phenomenal job as to really getting down to the legality of what Matt was trying to say. Is Chris was really smooth about coming against him, and it surprised me that amendment got the attention from the members of the House where it was actually able to be discussed. That was a little shocking. I mean, he had like half of the House agreeing with him, and that's something to notice. However, we are, I'm very glad that it did not succeed, because that would have absolutely killed the entire bill.
So the two of you, now that I have you both here on the spot, both of you have lobbied or are lobbyists, and you understand how deals get made in the hallways up there in Montgomery, right? I have a terrible red streak starting right above my posterior and going down both of my legs because while school children don't have to wear masks anymore in Alabama, I can't get in to see my legislature at work. I think that is deplorable, and it's something that the governor should do something about right now.
You haven't been able to get in and see your legislature?
Were you able to go into the House this morning and see all of that?
No, but apparently you're allowed a 15-minute meeting there with them. So,
well, that's not while they're making the damn sausage, Shay. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. When the sausage is getting made, that's when I want to get in there and see what's going on.
The sausage doesn't get made on the floor, Pudden. The sausage gets made in the hallway.
That's exactly right.
And the Huddle House down the street.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't go in there, but everybody can pile up at the bar across the street to talk with the lobbyist after.
The Renaissance, yeah,
wherever the Whistle Stop, is that what it's called? The Whistle Stop bar at the Renaissance. So, full disclosure, Ms. Garrigan is a former client of mine, so we speak freely amongst each other. I didn't mean to bite your head off about that, but you understand my point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't get into a public building, but the school children, coronavirus is over with. So, why are we worried about our legislators getting sick?
Well, apparently they were all really afraid of getting corona, and
well, so the reason I have on sunglasses is one of my eyes looks like I've been hit by a softball, and apparently that's one of the coronavirus symptoms that I could possibly have, and I won't get my test back till this afternoon. So,
well, since
nothing nefarious about the sunglasses.
Since we're on the subject of absolutely made up, hysterical corona bullshit coming from my esteemed colleague, I've gotten probably 8 emails already from relatives and other people in Alabama who are terrified. I mean, terrified that this bill is a gateway to people being able to buy joints at the Quick Stop. Can you tell us why that it's not?
It's if you think about it this way, I mean, when you go to your doctor, do you go to your doctor and tell them what you want? Do you go to your doctor and say, hey, I believe that I'm going to need this kind of medication just because I've Googled it and it sounds really good and I know it's legal here in the state. So, when you come down to the patient and the doctor relationship, the doctor is going to be able to, he should be the one that decides if you're a candidate that has a qualifying condition that should be able to have access to medical cannabis. That's what I've always thought. When you start talking about recreational, we're talking about something completely different than a medical cannabis program. I mean, if it was recreational, that means you can go into ABC store, you go into Walmart or something. I mean, it's just something that would be readily accessible to anyone. Now, medical cannabis, I mean, you can't just walk into these dispensaries and just pick up whatever you want. You have to have a doctor's prescription. And that's what makes these dispensaries exclusive, is because you have to have a patient registry card. I mean, there's a lot of different hoops that people are going to have to jump through in order to be a patient of medical cannabis. And from my understanding, I don't think anybody would be buying medical cannabis and selling it on the side of the street somewhere to children or being near a nursery or what have you, because, the legislatures have been very clear that they are very well aware of an unregulated market that's going on. And it's going on in this entire state, and that, worried about children having access to recreational marijuana. I mean, they have more access to it now than they probably have ever had access to it. And there's a lot of things that, I'm sure we grew up in an age where, your parents would send you in to go buy cigarettes or, alcohol. You could buy that at about when you were 18 years old. And so I'm not really sure where all of this fear is coming from, unless it's just part of politics where they're just like, we don't want recreational here. Well, we got to have something to regulate a market. We've got to have some type of regulations enforced, because we're sitting right here in the middle of, Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. All of them have some type of marijuana, cannabis program in place. And what better place to come and start a big, huge, underground, unregulated market would be in the state of Alabama, because if you don't have any kind of regulations in place, then how are you going to enforce any kind of laws against these people? I mean, these are multi-million-dollar processing plants that they've set up here, that in hopes, in preparation of actually being processing, medical cannabis for qualifying conditions. And
Ms. Garrigan, is the lady who is in charge of the program now at the Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industry, is she going to be lead staff for this new commission?
no.
Has there been any discussion about that?
Well, I mean, no, she's okay. So they keep saying that the USDA is going, or the Department of Agriculture is going to be the ones that are handling the licensing. Well,
Which they do now.
They handle the hemp license.
Right, for CDB or hemp.
Yes.
From seed to
no, they actually
harvest.
Pass a license out to whomever qualifies for it, is really what it comes down to. And
but you can't just go. Rains and I couldn't go get 5 acres and start growing hemp tomorrow. It has to be property that has been row crop for some period of time. There are a lot of regulations, and when you talk about vertically integrated, what you're talking about are people that buy the seeds, grow the plant, harvest the plant, have a lab where they can process it into this medical marijuana gel caplet or however they're going to give it to people. And then you're saying those 5 integrated facilities are going to have 5 dispensaries around them.
There was a lot of questions there. Let's start with the lady, Miss Gale, who's over at the Department of Agriculture.
Right.
She handles, she's the number one person that the guys and girls that have hemp licensing, processing license, and cultivators license. And she's the one that handles them or answers their questions. I mean, she
issues the permit.
She does issue the permits. Yes.
Right.
So she's, she does a phenomenal job. She does a very phenomenal job. She really does. And the hemp, from the Department of Agriculture's perspective, they weren't really prepared for the CBD and the processing and all the different things that are going on right now. They just felt like, hey, these guys, them boys want a license to grow hemp, we'll give them a license to grow hemp, because in their mind, they just felt like it was going to be something like the rope, the fiber, that it was going to be something not as very, it's a thriving market right now.
But before they are allowed to harvest it, they have to take a sample and ensure there's no Delta-9 THC in it at all. If there is, the the Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries calls the sheriff, and they come out there and flamethrow the stuff to the ground, right? They harvest it. Have you heard of
that happening though?
Well, I know that it's a possibility. And when I went and talked to Ms. Gale up there for a couple of days and got educated about the program, it was my understanding that that was a real possibility, and that I wanted to let anybody know who came to me for advice know that they were dead serious about it. For every step of the procedure, if you ever run afoul of her, she's the one person in charge of the permit. So best not get in trouble with Ms. Gale, if you know what I mean.
Yes, that's exactly right. But no, the guys love Ms. Gale. We all love Ms. Gale, and nobody's going to get sideways with her, because she's been very helpful. She wants the hemp program to succeed. She's very, very involved with everything that's going on. And of course, she is limited to the type of help or the assistance that she may receive. But yes, she could issue, and she's the woman. She's the woman there at the Department of Agriculture, but she wants these guys to succeed. She doesn't. If these guys fail, the whole program would fail. So, I mean, if somebody had to go out there with a flamethrower, then it really just looks bad on the Department of Agriculture, because they're the ones that issued them the license. And so she's very accommodating to all of the processors and the growers.
And we want people to know that these are people. We're not talking about multinational corporations coming in here and pushing down our pine trees and starting big hemp farms. These are local farmers. Some of the ones that I'm aware of are into sweet potatoes and corn and all this kind of stuff, and they're looking at this crop as a potential moneymaker, right? Just like indigo and cotton and everything else, peanuts.
For the past 3 years, and you've had the experience. You see how it is. For the past 3 years, this has been going on. The guys have been growing hemp. So I mean, it's been a progression. They've evolved into different things. Last year it was they were making money off smokable hemp, and then there was a stop that was put to that. Along with this year, there's Delta 8 has become something big where the guys have been making money off Delta 8. But the hemp industry as a whole, the guys are just kind of barely getting above ground.
There's a glut of CDB oil on the market right now because
Yes.
everybody planted CDB because that's all you could really produce here, unless you were just making hemp for rope. And so there's a lot of that on the market. And you're saying that, so is Delta 9, Delta 8 THC a derivative of it's got to be Delta 9 first, right? You can't just grow Delta 8 hemp is my question.
Well, I don't really want to get into all of that because
into the chemical composition.
Well,
What, the lobbyists doesn't know all this stuff?
There was a bill that was out there that threatened to take down all the deltas, which means it would have outlawed and it would have banned CBD from being processed as well.
So what happened to that legislation?
Well, it didn't succeed.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm going to let Rains have the last few questions. I kind of monopolized you. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'd like to say some more things about the hemp farmers. I mean, each one of these guys have their own technique. And you've seen some of them, Harry. And they've evolved. So they've been, there's different, cannabis is cannabis. You can narrow it down to hemp or what have you. But these guys have been evolving. So they're learning. Everybody's learning. We're all kind of in this, in this together with the hemp industry. When you start talking about hemp, though, there's a lot of changes that can be made that can make that program a lot more successful. And and Gail is absolutely wonderful. The guys are compliant to the most of, from what I've heard is she may have people that maybe doesn't read the emails that she sends out and doesn't, do things like that. But other than that, she's extremely accommodating to all of these guys. And, we do need a hemp commission for one of those. That was something else that we, had talked about because, hemp is a thriving business. It's very hard for the guys that are here in the state that are licensed here in the state. They're licensed to grow here in the state, but they're hindered from selling their products at the stores. But, every gas station you go to, you can find some type of CBD product there, but it's not locally grown because it's really been, they've been hindered in how they've been able to make money here in the state. But the majority of these guys have set up to be growing medical cannabis. So that's what their hope is that they will be involved in cultivating and also growing and processing medical cannabis.
So when do we get to see the fireworks in the Senate? I hear there's rumors of filibuster running amok.
Well, not really. Did you want me to go into about the vertically integrated?
Not necessarily. Just okay. Tell us more about what the next step is in the Senate and how what your perspective is on that.
I would hope that what they've gone through for the past couple of days. I haven't been able to sit down and research if other states have taken this long to pass medical cannabis bills out of certain houses. It would be an interesting thing to look into because it's taken all of a good, 2 to 3 days, about 15-hour days to get this out of the House. So I'm not seeing any resistance coming from the Senate because just the Delta 8 amendment, when it was presented, presented really quickly and hoped to try to pass without anybody knowing about it. Everybody launched together and kind of started calling the senators, but I haven't heard of anybody bringing anything up in the Senate. I feel like they're going to concur because what's been brought up at the House, everybody's had a chance to say something and they're ready to have this bill passed.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything though?
I hear all kinds of things.
I'm of the understanding that, and I'll get a little, and tell me if this is too deep, Harry, but right now we're experiencing another filibuster in the House over the gambling bill. Mm-hmm. And we believe it's going to be filibustered on the House floor and the Senate floor. And there is a part of me, and Shay, you let me know if you agree, there's a part of me that I believe some of these senators wanted to get this medical cannabis bill out of the way just so they could really dig in on a filibuster on the gambling bill, because there's only so much filibuster left. Because if you don't have this thing on the table tomorrow for a vote, it's going to die just because of the way the legislative session is set up. So a part of me says, yeah, this is a great win for medical cannabis in Alabama. But a very small part of me politically, who deals in political capital, says that maybe there was a little bit of a sweep going on. And they said, look, let's just get this over with and let's move into gambling, which is a whole other thing. But I don't believe it's going to see any kind of filibuster. I don't think it's going to see opposition in the Senate, because I think they're going to have just a tiny bit bigger fish to fry when the gambling bill finally comes to a vote.
And there's a lot involved with the gambling bill. I mean, today, you know, or the past couple of days on Tuesday and Thursday, I mean, you see all of a sudden everybody's kind of awoke to what's going on with medical cannabis, and they have actually some very interesting and very good questions that, you know, I'm glad are finally being asked. Even if they're opposed to it, they've still looked at this bill and read into it. What we were trying to, and what we succeeded at, was getting this bill in front of gambling. So, because if medical cannabis came in after gambling, we had no shot of getting it passed this session. Right. So that's what we succeeded at, and we did it. So we could, you know, we got it. It's little nail biter there, but that was some of the backroom things that was going on. That was, you know, there were some conflicts there. People really wanted to just wait it out and give it, you know, to the end of the session and be like, hey, we've run out of time. We didn't get a chance to hear the medical cannabis bill because, you know, we had all the gambling stuff going on. So the fact that we've gotten the medical cannabis bill and we've gotten it out of the House, I mean, this is a historical moment in Alabama.
So Raines, it reminds me of Jimmy Kimmel Live, where every night he says, and our apologies to Matt Damon, just said didn't have time to get to him this week.
Didn't have time to get to you today.
Yeah. That's medical marijuana in Alabama for you. The Matt Damon of the show.
Something I found interesting, and Ms. Gary can probably speak to this, is that it felt like Alabama's pro-medical cannabis people were really following the Tennessee model of getting it pushed through the legislature. Now, Tennessee had their medical cannabis initiative shot down in March of this year. And this is ever since they've legalized CBD since 2015. I think now, because of the success that we've had today, that Tennessee is going to adopt the Alabama model. And it may be the new bellwether for how to push a bill through. And, you know, Mike Ball needs to start writing up a playbook that he can license and say, hey, I got this through Montgomery. Take this, eat.
Yeah, we need to send that man to DC soon before he gets too old.
He's a good, Representative Mike Ball. He's a really good man. He really is. And he was moved. If you've heard his story, he was moved by someone sending him an email that talked about their grandchild that had some severe epileptic seizures. And he started, you know, he's heavy into law enforcement. So he's not a believer in marijuana at all, but he was moved by a letter that someone's grandmother sent. He started asking questions, and he had to find the right person to present this bill in the Senate, because he knew that's where he was going to be having some, he was going to be having some resistance. In fact, this has been attempted before in the past. I believe there was another representative that's not there anymore, but she had presented a bill, and they actually gave her, I think it's called the Shroud Award, where it's like the crappiest bill of the entire session. So she ended up winning that. Said it was the dumbest bill that had ever been brought.
Must have been before Chris Elliott got in office.
Well, she's people that have gone before, and they've set the stage, and they've gotten. There's other stories I've heard about another gentleman that, you know, used to ride around on a little GoDaddy, is all I can say, and he used to have college kids up there who, but he was all for medical cannabis. And so you see where I'm headed on this one. And so, but
right. The advocacy has changed significantly.
Yes, that's what
back in the day. Yes.
And it's the way I've always looked at it is that I've never been able to find a reason as to why we do not have any kind of program. I mean, even when they're opposed to it, usually comes down to not necessarily they're opposed to the bill. They may be just opposed to the personality of the person that's carrying it or something.
Absolutely.
Like the
Absolutely.
egos.
Huge deal. You can't, the days are gone when you can have a senator who looks like he's a drummer in Bob Marley and the Wailers come up there and present any kind of cannabis bill at all. It's got to be pushed through by,
Mike Ball,
one of the old white guys with a nice
Representative
gentle
Ball.
nudge from Shay Garrigan. It's always those days are over with, and it has to do now with really presenting a bill and not an issue. I think we're moving past the issue part, and I think evidence of that was the vote today.
It's amazing when we've seen Mike Ball. He's been in there and he's been answering all these questions, and he's been on point about what these guys have been asking, like debating these amendments. And so he's actually been, I did talk to him. He does have a manuscript out that he wrote because he's about his experience in the legislature, which is very fascinating. And so, and I asked him if he was going to be writing anything else, like a volume 2 to what his experience is, because it's just been interesting to watch what he's had to go through. And him along with Senator Melson, and Senator Melson, he's been he's had to eat a lot of stuff too.
I bet. All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your time. And hey, when this thing passes, we want to do it again. Let our viewers know about it. Mr. Russian, you heading to y'all already have medical marijuana in Texas, right?
To a degree, yes. Not to the degree that you're going to have it here in Alabama, but
Really? So
to a degree,
maybe
yeah.
we'll talk about
I
that
get
a little bit more.
medicinal marijuana from a dispensary down the street that just happens to be my mechanic's garage. So we ain't quite there yet.
Right. Well, I think I'll go to Flowerwood or whoever ends up getting the permit around here. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Garrigan. Keep us informed. And Mr. Russian, you have a good afternoon.